Should be able to see my screen, hopefully. Welcome. This is the CBRA RFP pre-proposal conference for the King County Department of Community and Human Services. My name is Charlotte Leffler, and I am the Behavioral Health Housing Specialist for the King County Behavioral Health and Recovery Division. And today I'm going to be sharing some information with you regarding the CBRA RFP. Before we get started, I did want to take some time just to share a couple housekeeping items. So first, if there are any consultants on the call today that will be providing grant application and capacity building consulting for this RFP, please go ahead and type your name into the chat box now. We do need to take attendance for all the consultants that attended this pre-proposal conference. So by typing your name into the chat box, that will allow us to take attendance. Additionally, at the end of today's presentation, there will be some time to ask questions. You can ask questions either by unmuting yourself, or you can type a question into the chat box if you prefer. I'll try to answer any question I feel like I can accurately respond to today. And if I don't know the answer to a question, then I'll just say that, and then after this pre-proposal conference, we'll work on getting an answer to that question, and we'll post a response as an amendment to this RFP on Zoom grants. That being said, it is important to note that all questions asked today will be recorded, and written responses will be posted as an amendment to the RFP on Zoom grants. And King County is only bound to written answers to questions. So it is encouraged that you regularly review Zoom grants for any updates, clarifications, or amendments to this RFP. All right, and with that, we can go ahead and get started. So during this pre-proposal conference today, I'm going to take some time to review the background of this RFP. Also take some time to review Zoom grant application basics. And then, as I mentioned before, I'll wrap up today with some time for you all to ask any questions you may have. So I did want to introduce the CBRA RFP team to you. So this team includes Joanna Armstrong, who's on the call today, and she is the RFP lead. So Joanna is the person that you will reach out to if you have any questions about this RFP, and her contact information is going to be provided at the end of this pre-proposal conference. And then, as I mentioned, my name is Charlotte Leffler, and I am the project program manager for this RFP. All right, so taking a look at the background, a little bit about the background of this RFP. So CBRA is funded by state general funds that are allocated by the Washington State Legislature. And BHERD receives the CBRA funding from the Washington State Department of Commerce, which we then will be passing down to an organization that's awarded this RFP. I'll note that the current contract period for CBRA does end at the end of June, so June 30th of 2023, but it is anticipated that CBRA will continue to be contracted out annually. So CBRA funding is available in regions across Washington State, and each region manages their CBRA funding independently, and therefore there may be some differences between how one region is maybe administering CBRA. Historically, within King County, CBRA funding has been inserted into other programs as an available resource for those program participants. And King County is now seeking a provider who will fully administer all CBRA funding. This includes accepting referrals from community providers to really ensure that this resource is available to the priority population as well as throughout the community. So CBRA provides long-term or bridge rental subsidies for individuals with behavioral health conditions and their households. CBRA pairs these housing subsidies with other programs that offer supportive housing services to really support the opportunity for individuals with behavioral health conditions and their households to live independently in the community of their choice. CBRA does prioritize households meeting eligibility criteria for the program who are also either discharging, needing to discharge, or who have discharged from a state psychiatric hospital or community psychiatric inpatient bed within the past 12 months. And households that meet eligibility criteria but are not within this priority population can still be served, but there do need to be reasonable efforts made and a specific process in place to ensure that the priority population does have first access to available funding. So SEBRA does adhere to the principles of evidence-based practice of permanent supportive housing, which includes choice in housing and living arrangements, functional separation of housing and services, decent, safe, and affordable housing, community integration and rights of tenancy, access to housing and privacy, and flexible, voluntary, and recovery-focused services. CBRA also adheres to housing first principles, which prioritizes providing permanent housing to people experiencing homelessness, recognizes that people need basic necessities like food and a place to live before attending to anything less critical, such as getting a job or budgeting properly or attending to substance use issues, and is based on the understanding that client choice is valuable in housing selection and supportive service participation, and that exercising that choice is likely to make a client more successful in remaining housed and improving their life. So there are currently a number of individuals already enrolled in CBRA who are receiving housing subsidies. And it's important to note that the community organization awarded this RFP will initially enroll and administer CBRA to these individuals. And then as capacity and budget allows, CBRA funding can be a resource that's offered and administered to other new CBRA eligible referrals. All right, and then finally, the organization that's awarded this RFP would begin CBRA program development and startup between the period of May 1st, 2023 through June 30th of 2023. And by July 1st, the organization awarded this RFP would be fully administering CBRA. So this includes, but is not limited to, accepting and processing new referral applications, building relationships with community partners, in particular those serving the CBRA priority population and CBRA eligible population, determining, documenting, and annually recertifying eligibility, determining and paying on-time housing costs, completing HMIS data entry, completing housing activities such as documenting habitability, obtaining leases and rent agreements, and completing lead-based paint assessments, and then also providing housing search and placement services um, to those enrolled in CBRA. All right, so now that I've provided a little bit of background regarding the RFP, we can now review the tentative timeline for the RFP. It is important to remember that these dates are tentative and estimates, therefore they are subject to change. But the CBRA RFP was posted on February 21st. Today, February 27th, is the pre-proposal conference. The final day to ask questions is March 9th. Applications are due by 2 p.m. on March 23rd. And then the evaluation period will run from March 24th through April 7th. We're hoping to notify organizations of selection or non-selection in the month of April. And then, as I mentioned before, the hope is that the contract start date would be May of 2023. So now looking at the rating criteria that will be utilized when reviewing submissions for this RFP. So there are four main categories that will make up the rating criteria for this RFP. So the first category is organizational experience and capacity. This category is worth 65 points, and it includes topics related to program development and implementation for 10 points, priority population and eligibility for 10 points, program staffing for 5 points, housing activities and support services for 15 points, capacity for 5 points, HMIS data entry for 5 points, maintaining client records for 5 points, and then housing cost payments for 10 points. The next category is equity and social justice, which is for 10 points. And this category, in part, is going to look at an applicant's understanding of and dedication to equity and social justice and an ability to provide culturally relevant services. The next category is budget and fiscal, which is worth 20 points, which in part will consider topics such as proposed budget and a fiscal management plan or systems. And the final category is data collection and evaluation, worth 5 points. That will consider an ability to report accurate and on time data. So overall, there are 100 points available, but if needed, interviews may be completed, and these interviews will be worth a total of 20 points. So looking at how to apply for this RFP. To apply, you will use the Zoom Grants link that's provided at the top of this slide. Um, so once you are in Zoom Grants, you'll want to be sure to respond to all questions under each tab. In the budget tab, you'll want to input detailed budget information for a projected budget to develop the CBRA program from May 1st through the end of June in order to fully implement the CBRA program by July 1st. In the budget tab, you'll also want to input detailed information for your organization's projected annual budget for CBRA from July 1 through June 30th of next year. If you have any questions, these can be directed to the RFP lead, Joanna, whose email address is listed at the bottom of this slide. So the RFP application must be received by Zoom Grants no later than 2 p.m. on March 23rd. As we mentioned, it's important that you regularly check Zoom Grants for any updates, clarifications, or amendments to the RFP. If you do experience any technical issues with Zoom Grants, please submit a ticket to Zoom Grants or contact our RFP lead, Joanna, for assistance. There are a couple Zoom Grant quirks that we kind of wanted to note and make you aware of today. It can be helpful to know about these before going into the application. So there are two ways to respond in Zoom Grants. You can either type directly into the box, or you can type your response in a separate place and then paste it into the box. There is no save button in Zoom Grants. So to save your work, you just click outside of the box you are typing in, and you will see the word save flash in the middle of your screen. It's important to note that sometimes Zoom Grants does experience technical difficulties. In particular, sometimes the screen will flash save for several minutes, and this won't go away. The only thing you can really do if this happens is to hit the refresh button on your browser and hope that the information you entered was saved. Because of this, a lot of people prefer to type their answers outside of Zoom Grants and then to paste the response into the box, just so you don't run the risk of losing the information you typed. Um, it is important to note when pasting in responses, please note that Zoom Grants cannot accept formatting such as bold, underlining, or bullets. Um, if you do paste something that includes this type of formatting, sometimes Zoom Grants will just erase the formatting and accept the paste of the text. But sometimes pasting in formatted text will cause Zoom Grants to flash for several minutes and never save. And again, in this situation, you would just have to refresh your browser. So to be safe, you'll want to clear all formatting before you paste the text into Zoom Grants. If you experience any other technical difficulties with Zoom Grants, you can email your issue to questions@zoomgrants.com. You'll want to be as detailed as possible about the issue and tell them which RFP you are applying for. And then finally, we did want to note to please allow sufficient time to ensure timely receipt of your application or to resolve any technical difficulties you may encounter in Zoom Grants. Please don't leave it to the last minute to submit your application to avoid these technical difficulties, which may disrupt your submission. we cannot accept any late applications out of fairness to all applicants. So if you are experiencing issues right up to the deadline, please email your application to the RFP lead well in advance of the deadline to avoid a late submission. You can keep trying to resolve the technical issues after emailing it in case you are able to get through and submit it via Zoom grants, but don't risk having your application denied by putting off this step. All right. So now I'm going to walk through a demonstration regarding kind of how to navigate Zoom grants. So let me go ahead and open this browser. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up if you are all are able to see the Zoom grants page? Okay, great. Got a thumbs up. Okay, so this is the CBRA RFP page on Zoom Grants. So it's important to note that you must have a Zoom Grants account and you must be logged into that account in order to begin an application. So you can log into Zoom Grants on the upper right-hand corner of the page. Or if you need to, you can create a new account by clicking the new Zoom Grants account button. That's just a little bit below the space where you would log in. It is important to note that you can still review the RFP without logging in. Um, I- and so you will see two rows of blue tabs. So you can either hide or, apologies, I know that this screen it keeps changing screens on you. So up here on this blue tab, you can show or hide any of these tabs on the top row. And the top row has all the information regarding the RFP, including a description of the RFP, information regarding minimum qualifications, and also a library, which includes the complete RFP document. Um, the library will also contain any amendments that may be posted for this RFP. So it is important to note once again to please make sure you review the full RFP information that's included in the library, amendments and any information related to the Q&A, for example, from today's proposal, will be posted in the library here. But yeah, as I mentioned, you can just click show or hide any one of these tabs to get more or less information regarding the RFP, depending what you're looking for. So now we will look at the tabs, the second row of blue tabs, which is down here. So the tabs, the bottom row of tabs have the actual RFP application that you'll need to fill out. So this includes a tab for the summary questions, narrative questions, budgets, and a document tab. Um, so within the summary tab, you'll want to fill in your organization's information and answer the zip code questions which asks where you plan to deliver services for this RFP. And if you want to submit extra documentation along with your proposal, you would do this via the document tab here. All right, so I'm going to switch back over to the slides. All right. So now we can take some time to review the contract requirements for this RFP. So if an organization is awarded this RFP, in part, they would be responsible for submitting monthly invoices, requesting reimbursement, and also submitting monthly CBER reports to support these invoices. There also is a requirement to submit other annual reports as requested. And then additionally, it's important to note that the organization that is awarded this RFP would be responsible for partnering with the King County Performance Measurement and Evaluation Team in order to submit data related to CBRA to really track program impact. So finally, before I wanted to open it up for questions, I did want to touch on capacity building support that is available. If you are awarded a contract, please don't forget that DCHS has free capacity building support available. A consultant may be able to work with you to improve internal processes and or develop skills within your organization. Smaller organizations are prioritized for this resource, and smaller organizations are defined as having fewer than 20 full time equivalent staff and an annual operating budget of less than $4 million at the time of original application. And if you would like to request support, you can submit a DCHS GACB request form online using the link that I've listed at the bottom of this slide. All right, and now we can go ahead and open it up for questions. As a reminder, you can ask questions by either unmuting yourself to ask or type your question to the chat box. Once again, I mentioned this at the start of the presentation, but just wanted to reiterate that I'm going to try to answer any questions I feel I can accurately respond to. If I don't know the answer to a question, then I'll find out the answer after this pre-proposal conference, and we'll post a response as amendment to this RFP on Zoom grants. However, once again, it's important to note that all questions asked will be recorded and written responses will be posted as an amendment to the RFP on Zoom grants. King County is only bound to written answers to questions. Therefore, we do encourage you to regularly review Zoom grants for any updates, clarifications, or amendments. Also remind you that if you have any questions after this pre-proposal conference, you'll want to go ahead and direct those to the RFP lead, Joanna, whose email address is on this screen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so I can see any questions that come through. So I see the first question. How many organizations are you planning on funding? I guess that would depend on the applications that we would receive. So yeah, it's really really going to be dependent on the applications. I think we likely are just looking to award this contract to one organization, but I think that will be driven by what types of applications we receive. Um, Next question. Who is your current provider for these services? Currently, Catholic Community Services of King County is administering some CBRA funding for us, as well as the Telecare Pact and ICRON Pact teams. The organization that's awarded this RFP would absorb the current participants receiving CBRA funding and would begin administering CBRA for those households. And then, as capacity and budget allows, may accept new referrals for CBRA funding as well. Any other questions, please feel free to type into the chat box or unmute yourself. All right, so I see. So the idea is that this wouldn't be specific to a local area, but rather all of King County. Yes, that's correct. This CBER funding would be a resource to residents throughout King County. Next question, how many clients are currently served? This would be a question I would like to, just so I can give you an accurate response, I'd like to record this question and then we will post the answer online via an amendment to the RFP. But that's a great question. Thanks for asking. Any other questions you all may have? When will the amendments be posted? Gosh, maybe I will look to Joanna for her expertise related to how long typically it takes to get an amendment posted after this presentation. I know it's probably reliant on how quickly I can get the information to you, of course.
Yeah, we can probably have this amendment posted by Wednesday, assuming we can get all the questions answered.
Perfect. Thanks, Joanna. So I see capacity issues are important to understand. Did you have a specific question related to the capacity issues?
I'll just start talking instead of putting it out. I'm sorry. It's just it's good to know what those capacity, like who is being served, how many is being served, because we to understand what we're submitting for is to understand who are the current clientele, and then what new folks could we take in, and depending on capacity. So those are so critical. So those will be posted. Those types of answers will be posted on Wednesday. Is that what I understand?
So I on Wednesday will hope to get the answers to all the questions asked during this pre-proposal conference, and I can try to get information related to the number of clients that are currently being served. I will note that I do know that the current number is not the kind of total capacity for the current CBRA funding. And through this RFP process, one of the questions is asking the organization, based on the requirements outlined in the RFP and based on the funding that is available, what would be your organization's capacity to
Hmm.
deliver these services? So that is a question that I think we're looking for organizations to tell us what they what their capacity would be and kind of what that would look like.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions you all may have? All right. Well, it seems like we may not have any other questions then. If that changes, if you do think of a question, please feel free once again to reach out to the RFP lead, Joanna, and she would be the person to direct any questions you may have. And then once again, any questions that we answer will be also posted as an amendment to the RFP on Zoom grants. But thank you all for attending. We really appreciate your time, and I hope that this information was helpful. So thank you all. And yeah, Joanna posted her contact information in the chat box. So if you do need to email her with a question, you'll want to use that email address. Yeah, but thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Monday.